And up next is the New Hampshire primary, 1 week from today. Joining us from Manchester, New Hampshire, is political reporter for the Boston Globe and MSNBC contributor James Pindell. James, what are you hearing and what are you seeing?
Well, look, after last night in Iowa, the main challenge here is, will there even be a primary after the New Hampshire primary? And that's kind of the campaign's going to be focused on that in the next 8 days. And Nikki Haley's challenge is to get people to even care. Polls show her down 20 points. We had that one poll, of course, showing her down by 9, but sort of an outlier at this point. And so the first test really for Nikki Haley is to drive up the enthusiasm for this primary in general. I got to tell you, this is my 7th New Hampshire primary. Enthusiasm is way down. We talk about crowd sizes in context for what the other guy's doing in 2024, but not what happened in 2020 or 2016 or anything like that. I mean, we're talking about crowd sizes in the hundreds, not the thousands. And so that is something that Nikki Haley is going to have to battle against to try to get people to even care in the first place, and second, to have them care enough to get excited for her campaign.
So, James, what is her message, Nikki Haley, for people who haven't been following it on the ground? They may watch us in the morning, and we do talk about how she's really not gone at Donald Trump very directly over the course of her campaign. But New Hampshire is it for her. She needs to win there, finish a close second, and then she can make the case that she's going home to South Carolina after that. What is her message inside the state in New Hampshire?
You know, what's fascinating is that every single time there's an incumbent president in office and there's a New Hampshire primary, a presidential primary, we typically talk about one big thing: electability. I'm sure there's other issues, the war in Iraq, or you can get into the economy, but electability emerges as a theme. And this time, there really hasn't been electability. Now, some of that is the fact that Republican voters have their minds made up and they want Donald Trump. Some of it is that Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden in these latest polls. So electability, you have obviously Donald Trump, but their final pitch really to voters here in New Hampshire has been this Wall Street Journal poll showing her up 17 points, or the other poll showing her up 9 or 10, versus a hard slog against Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. And there's also a message of turning the page, which I just don't really think has been really catching on and working for her in this state anyway.
So, James, we've spent a lot about what Nikki Haley needs to do there. Let's talk about Donald Trump. This is a state, New Hampshire, that in 2016 he lost Iowa closely, then had a resounding victory in New Hampshire and sort of propelled his way towards the GOP nomination that year. Tell us a little bit about his ground game there, what his strategy is. He took a pretty light approach to Iowa campaigning. Do we expect the same in New Hampshire, or are we going to see more of him?
Great questions. I mean, on the ground, it's a similar story of what happened in Iowa. In 2016, he had basically a joke of a field camping. I remember they were trying to bring me into the office to make the point, yeah, look at our ground game, James. You're going to tell the story. This was in 2016. It was a total joke. This time, it's completely serious. The mere fact that he's had so many trials away from this state has let the operatives really build and grow. But in terms of his actually being on the ground, he's going to be on the ground pretty much every single day in New Hampshire to make sure he can solidify his lead here. I mean, look, if you look at the first 4 states, Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada, you guys talked about this again and again. This is the state where he has been the most vulnerable. He's always been consistently under 50% in polling all year. There's only been 2 polls out of about 100 that have showed him over 50%. And so if there's anywhere there's going to make any action against Donald Trump, it would be here, and he's still up, 15, 20 points.
All right, political reporter for the Boston Globe, James Pindell, thank you very, very much for your insight this morning.